We're switching now to the west wing of the college, the residential wing, if you will, of the college. And we have two elevations, one from inside of the quadrangle and one from outside of the quadrangle. The inside one, arguably one of the most beautiful drawings, in part because of the coloration associated with different materials. So, Peter, tell us more about these drawings.
The things that jump out at me are the very nice treatment of the cloister along the facade of the west wing on the quadrangle side, and also the nice indication of the patterning of the slate roof. That slate roof was replaced as the very first part of the restoration of the building in the 1970s because it was leaking in so many parts. And in order to stabilize the building, that was item number one. And all of that slate came from the very same quarry that the slate had come from originally, a quarry in Vermont that is known for its slate. So we see the roof very nicely, and we see the cloister, and the main thing is to notice is the three-floor, quite residential sort of scale, domestic in scale, as appropriate for living quarters for the students. One thing about the design of the layout, I should say perhaps, of the west wing, and that is that the student rooms were arranged on staircases, so each staircase had its own entrance. Today we call them the A, B, C, D, E, F staircases. And a room on the second floor could only be accessed originally by the door here and by the staircase that went up to it. And so at each floor level, at each staircase, there were 4 doors for the 4 rooms that opened off it. In the 1950s or 60s, I've forgotten exactly when, this was altered for fire reasons when they changed a lot of the details of the West Wing, and they put at that point corridors right through so that you can go from one end to the other end on the second and third floors, more or less. As students note these days, it's very difficult to find your way through it because of the twists and turns.
Very easy to get lost, yes.
And these drawings also show then the student dining room at the end, and that student dining room had its own tower. It had a bell to call the students to hall for their meal times. It was supposed to have a clock in the 4 faces, or maybe it was only in 2 faces of it, but that clock never got installed. Probably a cost-saving technique. And on this drawing, I think the one thing that this shows that the other one doesn't show is that as you come up to the north end of the wing, you cut through the dean's house, and
yes, the dean's house is very prominently identified when you look outside. So it's the only house in this complex that has its own individual entrance with that nice ironwork on the door. So this is the front door of the dean's house.
Thank you for rescuing me.
It's set out, actually, it's set out from the rest of the structure a few feet. So it's very obvious on the outside that that's a distinct structure.
And that setting out, thank you for mentioning it, because that is a standard technique of Cumberland Storm and of many architects of the time to identify changes in function by changes in the elevation of the wall, the plan of the wall. And so this popping out sets that apart, and the different details set that apart as a separate function from the student rooms. This is a good residence. These are fairly
and you can see the
residences.
Patterning of windows. It's a more interesting patterning of windows, and this is much more regimented along here with the student rooms. Although there is this very nice common door for students with, again, quite beautiful ironwork on it. That door, of course, still exists.
That door still exists, that's right. These drawings are in very good shape, and that reminds me to say, and this would be a good point to say it, that it's remarkable to me that these drawings, which must have sat on the contractor's desk for 3 years, have survived in the condition that they have. And we're very fortunate to have these, because we can talk about the architectural history of University College in a way that we can talk about few buildings from the 19th century.
Okay, so next we're actually going to look at floor plans of the same wing, the West Wing. 2 floor plans of different floors in the West Wing, and different in detail, so interesting for that reason. So this is the first floor, which is, they used what is now European numbering, so the first floor was 1 floor up, and this is the ground floor, and this is uncovered, so I will be careful with this. And this is the ground floor. So very different aesthetics, very different functions of the two, so why not start talking about that one?
Sure. Well, here we see some details that we haven't noticed before in the 1850s building. One thing to notice is that we have the first opportunity that we've had to see a washroom from the 1850s to the north of the entrance through the East Wing for students and others. And that would have been a pretty primitive accommodation, but we also even have a drainage plan that shows the drainage scheme for the sewage coming out of the college. But it was very insignificant and not something that anybody would have wanted to go and visit. You can also see at this end the dining hall for the college, today's junior common room, laid out with long tables that stretched the length of the room, and the big fireplace, which is still there, and a pantry here, and right adjacent to the student dining room, the dining room in the dean's house, which is this section of the building. When we look at the other drawing, we notice that there's much less detail, and there's a simple explanation for a good bit of that. Because this is essentially a brick structure at this part of the college, once you lay out all the dimensions for window openings and door openings and the like on this level, there's no need to show them on the one level up because the brick walls just go straight up, and so all of those dimensions are fixed, and it's only the dimensions for the frame walls, the wood stud walls that close off the corridors, and some cupboards for the students that are actually dimensioned on this level of the drawing. So this level looks a lot simpler. My guess is that this level, the drawing for this level, was not used anything like as much as the drawing for the ground level, because it is, first of all, in poorer condition, and the watercolor washes showing the material for the walls are much faded out here as compared with this drawing. Once again, one sees some of the little changes being penciled in on the drawing, and here a figure drawn in. It looks as if he's almost in tailcoats and a top hat, and he's doing something up in the bell tower. But who knows what?
Who knows what?
We won't go there.
There's one other drawing to see, and it's some detailing of the same part of the college, but it's striking in its beauty and in the detailing that it provides. It also has more the air of an actual watercolor in parts of it.
Yes, this has got to be a storm drawing, as I take it the others are as well, but just the vitality of the watercolor washes that he uses to show shading in the windows, for example, and the glass, and the washes that show the different materials, the brickwork and the stone surrounds on the window frames, and the wood joists, and what looks like it should be insulation, but you can be pretty sure it's not insulation. I think it's just showing voids in the spaces between the joists. But it's just a gorgeous drawing, unlike any drawings that we would do today. And it also shows a quite nice detail of the, or closer up detail of the slate roof, both over the main part of the building and over the cloister that runs up the quadrangle side of it. There's also some very nice detailing in this drawing, and you can see it in some of the other drawings too, of the ironwork. All of the ground floor windows had iron grates that I suppose were intended to prevent students sneaking in or sneaking out late at night. And I guess we could say, fortunately, those haven't survived.